Hey, welcome to
Thank
this
you.
conversation with the New York African Film Festival.
Thank you.
Ju just give a quick, brief intro. We're having this conversation um, on the back, or I should say, in honor of the screening of your father's films, Kadara, um, film which is actually a pretty big deal because this is a film I know has not been publicly viewed in decades. And I'll give you a little bit more on that. But anyway, my name is Seke Somolu, for those watching, and I'm going to be interviewing Kunle Afolayan, the son of the director of the film Kadara, Adeyemi Afolayan, who was popularly known as Ade Love, and who was a pioneer. Well, he was a pioneer and a member of what I like to call the pioneer generation of Nigerian filmmakers, people who are active in the 1970s and 1980s. And they made a lot of amazing works, a lot of works that have been lost over the years, which is one of the reasons why this is such a big deal, to get the opportunity to watch this film. And I'm speaking with Kunle, who is an accomplished filmmaker in his own right. He's made such films as The Figurine, October 1, Phone Swap, and the recently released Citation on Netflix. I'm looking forward to having a really, really rich conversation with him today. So Kunle, once again, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Sheka.
We'll just get right into it. Just to give a bit of background to those who don't know, your father started out in theater, the Yoruba traveling theater, and like a lot of the luminaries of that theater movement, people like Hubert Ogunde, people like Baba Sala, they migrated, if I can use that word, into the cinema once cinema became a viable option in the 1970s. A lot of them moved from the live theater. Well, I mean, I guess they continued to do live theater, but they added the cinema as another form of artistic creative expression. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so I believe Kadara was your father's. He had starred in a couple of films before then, directed by Olabalogun, Ija, Ominira, and Ajani Ogun.
Ajani Ogun, yeah.
Yeah, in the late 70s. But then I believe Kadara was the first one he directed personally.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me just kick it off by asking you, for me, watching this film, I just noticed a lot of, it's very different, obviously, from the films of today, what we call Nollywood. But at the same time, there are also a lot of similarities. I noticed a lot of similarities in terms of some of the themes, some of the genre elements. You know, you've got your romance, you've got your intrigue. I mean, Kadara is kind of set in a pre-modern time, so you've got, in a village setting, but also kind of a royal setting. So you've got all that palace intrigue. And we still see those kind of narrative tropes in a lot of films today. There's a lot of magic and supernatural elements, which is definitely something we still see in a lot of our films. So, in a way, very different, but also very similar. So I guess what I want to ask is, what is your personal take on those way the films were, the types of stories they were telling them, and how things have evolved to the Nigerian movies today?
Thank you, Sheka, for the opportunity to have this conversation. First of all, I'll say that there is not much difference in the type of stories that they were telling then and what we're pretty much doing now. Especially the Yoruba genre, because even up till now, you have a whole industry, which is a I don't know if I should call it subsection of Nollywood, where their focus is just Yoruba language content. And majority of some of the epic stories that they do are still pretty much set like what we have in Kadara, you know. And what informed all this kind of story basically is just the Yoruba literature. A lot of the stories they tell, are informed by most of the folklores that we were told growing up. Some of them are also um, facts from, let's say, Ifa divination, and stories of the, Orisha and the gods, and then of course the monarch and the royals, stories of the Alafi and the rest of them, and we still have this today. Uh, what I think the aspect that I feel that we need to right now we need to like challenge ourselves, is the production value. I mean, look at Kadara that was shot in 1978. You can see, a lot of, I mean, very good cinema work, and you can see that a lot of attention was paid to details, even in costuming and set and all of that. The modern filmmakers now who are doing those kind of stories don't pay that much attention to what was even done with Kadara. Yeah, but like I said, I think most of the stories, the ones that are told now, and the most of the ones that the likes of Ade Love and Hubert Ogunde and the rest of them were doing then were informed by um, from mouth to mouth story, and then the Yoruba literature. That's what I think.
Okay. Can you talk a bit? I mean, like you said, this film was shot in late 70s. I believe it was released in 1980. At least that was the that's
Yeah,
research.
it was released in sorry, it was released in 1980. It was Ijao Minera that was shot in 1978. Yeah, Kadara was shot in 1980 and was released in 1980, 81. Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you saw it? You saw the film yourself?
I think I saw it in 1980. Then there was usually nothing like a premiere, like the kind of premieres that we have now. The premiere for them was, they target festive seasons, so I know that we usually don't stay at home. We're never home during Christmas. We're never home during all the Muslims holidays, Ileya, Itunu, Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Maulud, all of those period, Easter, we're never home because that is the big period for filmmakers. That is when they release their films in theaters, all around the country. So I think I first saw it in 1980, yes, I saw it in 1980. But of course, as a young boy, I think I was 5 plus, at that time. And I could remember clearly, the story. And that's why now, if I watch it, I can say all the lines, in the film because I've seen it countless times, Yeah, and yeah. So, but it's one of my favorite because of the multicultural side to it, and even the multilingual. It has the Hausa Fulani beat, and
Yeah.
also the Yoruba part to it. Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. I mean, it's one of the things that ways in which it definitely differs from a lot of the films of today, certainly the Yoruba language films of today, is the fact that there was all these musical sequences. I guess your father was very musical because he plays the violin, well, let me say the traditional violin,
Traditional
the
violin,
traditional
traditional
guitar,
guitar.
and he
Yes.
sings. You know, it's quite
He,
musical. So
he
you have
plays
these musical.
flute.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. And so yeah, that's definitely something we don't see so much in films today. You know, that musical element. Um, but okay, but just to take it back to the film a bit, because I talked a bit about because what we are seeing now is effectively a restoration of this movie after
Yeah.
that was shot 40. I mean, literally 40 years ago. Um, and like I mentioned in the introduction, a lot of the films from that era truly have been lost because they were shot on celluloid, and a lot of those old prints were not properly preserved. Some of them have simply just been, forgotten in,
Mm.
God knows, maybe somebody's attic, somebody's cellar, somebody's backyard or boys' quarter somewhere. Maybe
Mm.
some of these films will turn up, but the truth is that in our modern era, the era home video, now we're into streaming and all of this. Many of these films are
Yeah.
not available to viewers today to watch,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why for me it was such a treat to be able to watch this film. So a lot of the films of that era have been lost. So please, if you can just walk us through the journey of how did this film that was shot on 35 millimeter. Actually, wait, I'm assuming it's 35. I don't know. Maybe it was Super
I think it
16.
was shot 30. I know we have 35 prints. We had 35 and 16 prints. I'm not really
Okay.
sure what it was shot on, whether it was 35 or 16, but I know I used to see the 35 and the 16 prints.
Okay. Okay. So definitely some form of celluloid, 40 years ago. If you can just give us, like, how did you now bring it into, how did shall I say, the rediscovery and then the restoration process? How did that happen?
Okay, well, I mean, I think after my father passed in 1996, I think we traveled home to my hometown at some point where they've moved a lot of his things. And I remember I was going through some of his documents and I found his letter written to him by Box Laboratory in Slough, in London. And of course, then I didn't make much of the letter because even if I wanted to do anything, there was no way. I couldn't do much. I was still working in the bank at that time, you know.
Okay.
So I remember sending an email to Box Laboratory in 2002, and I introduced myself, that Ade Love's son, and that I saw this letter that I would like to know what the status in because I saw that my father never signed it. So, and the content of the letter was that it was owing Box Laboratory some money, 8 or 9 thousand pounds, and they proposed to him that maybe they should sell the film, rights of the film to Channel 4 in the UK, and then that way they could get their money back and maybe remit some amount to him. Um, but I never really got any positive response from them. And then I had the opportunity of traveling to London that very year, and I made it a point of duty to go to Slough to find a lab. And also, I have to also say thank you to Mr. Tunde Kelani because TK, of course, he's aware of all these things because he was part of the crew that shot some of my father's films. I think from Yanuwura, which was shot in 1985. So then we went to London together. I myself and TK in 2002, and we went to Slough together. And then I met Mr. Box, who was the owner of Box Laboratory. You know, so, and you know, he was so delighted to. Apparently, he was close to my father. You know, during my father's time, and then he showed me a lot of documents. You know, they shared correspondence that they shared. And I said, okay, well, I'm here to take the films, you know, out. So what will it entail to telecine? Because at that time, you know, the technology, you know, they were using was to telecine from film to digital.
Right.
And at that time, I think they could only do 1K. Now we have 2K, 3K, 4K, and all of those things. But you know, so then they gave a bill, you know, of what is going to cost to pay the outstanding, then to telecine, to digital, and then make master in digital. And this became, I mean, it was a huge amount of money in pounds. And I got back home, presented it to the family, and of course, there was no one who could raise the money. But I kept in touch. I kept in touch with the lab. And at some point, they sold Box Laboratory to City Lab.
Okay.
And then there's a girl, Dupe Modupe. She's based in London. And she's someone who is also very interested in this African film restoration. And, you know, she's been in touch with Box. And then I decided to make her my contact and, you know, like agent in UK. So whenever I'm not there, she's the one that will go to Box and then, you know, go talk to them and see what we can get out. So not until 2016. Is it 2016? Or no. I think it was 2015 or 14. Wow. I was able to, I wrote to the Lagos State government then, and thanks to former governor, Babatunde Raji Fashola, who then, you know, agreed to like fund the restoration. Wow. Then we were only able to restore 3 of the films, Kadara, Taxi Driver Part 1 and Taxi Driver Part 2. And then there's 3 outstanding, and that's Yanuwura, Golden Mother, Ijaorogun, The Rivals, and then Ijao Minera, Fight for Freedom. Wow. But I kept in touch with the lab, and recently last year I was able to get out Ijao Minera, which was my father's first film, you know, as an independent filmmaker. And that was shot in 1978. Even though directed by Balogun, but produced by, you know, Ade Love, and, you know, and all of that. So now we have 2 films left, and that is Ijaorogun, The Rivals, and Yanura, you know, Golden Mother. Now, one of the reasons I really would love to have these 2 films is because in those films, my father played twins in the 2 films. So, you know, and you can imagine that the technology then, you know, where, you know, we have one actor played, you know, twins, you know, and I don't know how come it's the 2 films where he played twins that we, because Box, the lab is saying some of the reels are missing. So, so I'm hoping that they find them. But regardless, I have decided that I'm still going to get the prints. I'm just hoping that we're able to get money so that we can remove and the ones that we've removed. Yes, I have the digital version in Nigeria, but I still store the raw in a storage in UK.
Yeah.
So we can always still refer to, you know, the print and even the raw film and sound and everything, you know, I have them all stored in the UK. So that's how we got to.
Wow, it's really amazing, and obviously it has been a long journey to
Mm.
get to this point. You know, are there any plans to, at least the films you do have that you have been able to restore, um, Kadara and Taxi Drivers 1 and 2. Are there any plans to distribute them or to maybe exhibit them theatrically or maybe put them on some streaming platforms or something?
Yeah, well, we had my father's remembrance, I think 20 years remembrance, some time ago, and we screened in few theaters.
Okay.
Um, you know, but of course, it wasn't because these new cinemas won't show the film because they just felt, look, it's not going to make money. You know, so we had to do the traditional style by booking halls
Yeah.
ourselves and then showing the film, you know, just so that we use that to honor, you know, our father. But I'm trying to talk to streaming platforms, you know, I mean, to see if they are interested in classic films from here, and because it would be nice to really have it on, you know, a proper streaming platform, you know, to
Yeah.
show the journey and where we're coming from, you know, and all of that. So I'm hoping that will happen because I think Netflix at some point should be open to that. So yeah.
Um, One of the things I thought watching the film was I really got the impression that your father was having a lot of fun during the movie. You know, I mean, and obviously, I mean, yes, in terms of performance, you know, he really, you know, it just looked like he was really into it. But even beyond that, I'm just, you know, trying to imagine him at that time directing this, you know, coming up with all these scenarios and everything. You know, it really has that sense of, you know, like someone is just really having a good time, just making all this up and okay, let's just do this, let's do this, let's do this. You know, the creativity of it really comes through. Um, do you, I mean, obviously it's a long time, but did you get the sense that, and and obviously by the time he passed, the industry was shifting. You know, the celluloid era had pretty much died at that point, and you know the Nollywood era was just beginning. What do you think? What his views of the way cinema was evolving in Nigeria? Do you think he was fulfilled with the films he had made? And what do you think he thought of, you know, this video thing that was now emerging at that time?
No, I think he died. I'm not sure he died a happy man
Mm.
because at some point, you know, in Nigeria, all of them in that space, you know, couldn't afford to make films anymore. They couldn't make films on celluloid, and they didn't want to join the video era. So, and Ogunde was the first president of the um, Association of Nigerian Theatre Practitioners, ANTP.
Yeah,
And after him was my father. And I remember then Ogunde insisted that he would never do video, you know. And then he would cost out people who were doing video because they believe that it's either celluloid or nothing. Um, and, you know, inflation came, foreign exchange became, you know, unbearable for them. So they couldn't buy stock because at that time you could only, if you film here, you can only print, you know, I mean, in London. And I remember sometime in the early, I think 92 or thereabout, Nigeria Film Corporation set up a lab in Jos. And that was the very time that celluloid died. So I'm not sure if any film was ever processed in that lab, but I know my father, business was tough because this guy really didn't have any other thing doing. It was just film. And unlike, Western world where royalties and copyright and all of that, was properly set up, and they can, even if you die or even if you stop working, you'll be earning from things you've done. In Nigeria, we didn't have any of those kind of structures, so they make film, they earn, they spend. And then, and I saw a lot of letters that, because he pretty much used the same model I'm using now, which is, running to banks to get loan to make films. And I saw a lot of letters from First Bank and some other banks, and I'm talking as far back as 70s, where he was taking loan to make his films. So at some point he didn't the whole thing shut down, especially when video came, and I know he wasn't happy. He's always complaining until he passed.
Oh dear. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Speaking about like that aspect of the Nigerian film industry, like how do you? You alluded to it that you're also kind of in a situation where you have to take these loans, you have to do these things. What do you see a more optimistic future in terms of, I guess, the sustainability of the Nigerian film industry, the economic sustainability?
Yeah, I do. It's changing now. It's not that it's even changing. It's changed. Now that you have platform like Netflix coming in to commission films, and the commission, they'll give you money to make the film, and then you guys agree on rights, who owns what for how long. So if you're smart, you get the money, make the film, they explore their rights for the period that, and then it comes back to you, and you own it in perpetuity, and then you just have to find a way to ensure that the film is well secured, so that forever you're going to be earning as long as the film is good, So that's really relieving because since I started making film I don't think I've ever, even up until Monka League that I did 2 years ago, if I have always used loan to make those films.
Wow.
So, but now it seemed like the better days here, with these platforms coming in.
Okay. What would you say about what would you say to, well, no, don't let me pose this in the, I guess I'm trying to one of the things that you and I kind of talked about in an earlier conversation was the fact that today there are lots of young people, including many young filmmakers who don't even know that there was anything before, what we call Nollywood, before the home video revolution of the 1990s and onwards. There are people who don't even know that there are these films that existed before then. What do you think? Now, let me put it like two ways. Like, what do you think filmmakers of today, artists of today, would have to learn from those the work of that pioneer generation? Are there any, and what links can you maybe make between the work that was done then and the work that we're trying to do now, that filmmakers today are trying to do in Nigeria now?
So during the NSAS protesting, I released some clips from Taxi Driver Part 2, my father's film, and it went viral. You know, everybody was circulating it, and they were not only circulating it because I read a lot of comments, not only because it's directly, you know, relate to the current situation on ground, you know, about police, you know, corruption in police system and all of that, but also because the film looks clearer than what they see now. And people were asking, how come a film shot as far back as 1987, you know, is clearer than, you know, most of the things that they see now? And I always say to people that, look, if you see, and this is not like out of ego or anything, but if you watch October 1, 20 years from now, that is how it's going to feel. Because if you put the right production value, if you consider the right production value, you know, I mean, story is one thing, but how you document the story, you know, is another thing. Um, I mean, we've seen Sam Bennett's films, a lot of French films that were shot, you know, back then. If you look at them now and you look at the texture and you look at all of that, you know, they look great. Yes, technology, the new technology makes it easier, but I think it also has its, you know, side effects because it makes people lazy, and people always look for shortcuts, you know, to achieving things. Um, you know, I mean, if you like several times we'll put a notice out that we're looking for post-production, you know, like editor or colorist. And a lot of people will apply claiming that they are colorist or editor. And then I'll have, you know, we'll interview and I'll have them. I say, show me what you've done. And by the time I look at it, I'm like, okay, look, applying presets does not make you a colorist. Right. You can put preset or just paint or make it colorful and all of that. It still does not mean it is right, you know, and that is what I see. And that is why up till now, I don't grade my film here. I think that's the only thing I always had to do outside of Nigeria. And the next thing for me is with capacity building. And this is what I think really, I mean, is key, critical. And another reason why I'm saying that is because, okay, now we're in pre-production about to start another film. And it seemed like everybody is shooting because, I mean, COVID took over and now everybody's ready. So everybody's shooting at the same time. Right. Now, about the same time when we want to shoot, there are 2 other productions going on. And you won't believe that it's a shame because we're all recycling the same crew. Wow. So you're looking for a sound man and you can only point maybe 3-4 people, and you're looking for the right gaffer and they're saying he's on that set, and you're saying, okay, am I going to have to wait in an industry of 200 million people? And we always claim that, okay, we're second largest film production. So it means that there's something missing. Yeah. It means that all the energies you see on social media from the young people who always claim that they are creatives and all of that, it means they're not channeling that energy, you know, totally in the right direction. It means there's need for reorientation and there's need for proper training. You know, if not, it's going to be, you know, mediocrity, and people will just be still doing, I mean, colorful, substandard films, you know, and these films will only appeal to, you know, maybe people here, and is not going to cross border.
Right. Right. Um, do you think? I mean, obviously, if I can just talk about that, like, obviously, the digital technology we're using now, as you said, it's made a lot of things easier, and it's probably made certain things more um, achievable for film industry like Nigeria, the Nigerian film industry, which definitely doesn't have the economic resources, of like Hollywood or some of the big European film industries, for instance. But do you think we should be? How should I put this? Do you think the emphasis should be more to a young filmmaker? Do you think the emphasis should be more on mastering the technical side of it, or saying focus on the substance of your narrative, or are the two aspects simply inseparable and they just have to try and make everything?
No, and I think they are inseparable because look, if you have great stories and your story is amazing, but it's badly shot, it limits the number of platforms, distribution platforms that you can get to. As a matter of fact, if you give it to the core people who decide fate of films when it comes to getting it, distributed, once they see 5 minutes of your film and your sound is up and down, your filming and angles are wrong, and all of that, they will drop it. I mean, they won't even have the patience to see how great the picture, I mean, the story is, right? So, but if you have if it is cinematically shot and it looks great, sometimes they get carried away first, because they think it looks great. So they want to spend more time to watch until they realize it's a shitty story, if it is a shitty story.
Right.
So it's important to always strike a balance. Don't be too deep into, oh, look, if I don't achieve this shot this way, I'm not gonna rest. No. Story is so important, but standard quality picture. I mean, sorry, picture quality, and I mean, decent sound, audio. I think is all you need to actually make this magic.
Okay, fantastic. If I can steer in a slightly different direction, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess maybe the social content of your father's film. One of the things that struck me watching Kadara was that it was very, what we today would call inclusive. You have prominent female characters, women who are very strong, very strong characters, both strong physically, as in there are some really interesting fight scenes with some of the characters, but also just strong in personality, strong-willed, opinionated. There's never any sense, oh, women are second class. No, women are kind of placed in a very prominent position, and I thought that was very progressive. Considering some of the things we see in some of the other films and stories that have come out of Nigeria, but also some of the cultural mores and ideas that tend to be promoted. But you've got very strong female characters. You've also got this multi-ethnic thing. You talked about the fact that some of the prominent characters were Hausa Fulani within this Yoruba milieu, and they speak their language, and their culture is never portrayed as second class or second rate, or in any way. It's they're all equals. And then you've got the character of your father's the character played by your father. His best friend in the film is a dwarf, and it's referred to, it's definitely pointed out, but it's not you know, pointed out in a way
Yeah,
that,
not
you
in
know, as
a
an object of mockery or
diminished.
fun or
Yeah.
anything. He's just another guy, you know, he too fights, he too makes jokes, he too does everything, you know, he's just another guy. And so that's another thing that really struck me, that, you know, this film, you know, it's 40 years ago, but it was very inclusive, very open-minded, you know, kind of very egalitarian in the way it treated
Mm.
all different characters, different regardless of, you know, where they're coming from or their, you know, their station. So, you know, what was that? Some do you think that was something that was conscious, that your father was consciously trying to do? Or was it just part of who he was, that, you know, he didn't really kind of see the difference or see any, you know?
Um, Honestly, I really can't speak for him. But I think one of the, I mean, in regards to that aspect, but I feel that there's a bit of northern influence, I mean, because we're from Kwara, and up till today, some people always think that the people from Kwara are Fulani. Meanwhile, we are from the typical, they call us Igbomino, and we're from the typical Yoruba part of Kwara State. We're from Oyo proper. And if you look at my father's face, he had tribal marks, and those are like core Yoruba form of identity. Um, uh, but because I think he was also a marketing gimmick. Because at that time, nothing was happening in the East. There were no cinemas in the East. They don't go to cinemas. But the North and the West, were the people who were doing and going to cinemas. And there were large population of Yorubas in the North, even up till now. So, and I know that at that time, when a film is done, they travel to, I mean, Sokoto, Kaduna, Kano, Jeba, all of these places to show those films. So I think it was also because he wanted those people to have a sense of belonging, so that the people watching are not only the Yorubas in the North. So the Northerners, they watch a lot of Indian films. And then if you look at my dad's style, some of his songs, they are usually, he converts Indian tune, and then use
Okay.
Yoruba lyrics.
Ah.
Yes, so I've analyzed all of these things, and I figure that, look, this man is just being smart. He wants a larger audience, and larger people to appreciate, and he just wanted to cut across. I mean, he wanted to appeal to more people, not just the Yorubas, but even people in that side. So yeah, so I think and he speaks I know he speaks a bit of Hausa, but I think this is just from the fact that they all travel. Even my mother, they travel far and wide. They tour these films. And sometimes they will go for 2 months and they won't come back because they'll be going from one
Time to
one
another.
city to town to another. Yeah.
And I was going to say, okay, just to talk a little bit about your own work as well. Um, okay, well, I'll ask you, I guess, the obvious question, which is, are there any influences from your father's work in yours? Whether it's directly in terms of maybe aesthetics, or whether it's maybe in the manner he worked, or some, if there are any aspects, So I guess that's the obvious question I'll
Mm.
probably start off from. But
Mm-hmm.
beyond that, I guess I'm also curious to know what your plans are in terms of, well, specifically in terms of the kind of films that you want to you want to make, because I know you've made so many films. You've made period dramas. You've made kind of a thriller slash horror with the figurine. You've made romantic comedy. You've done a lot of, coming of age. You've done a lot of, you really kind of, crossed a lot of terrain. So I was just curious to know what directions you're interested in exploring next.
Okay, in regards to my father, I think, I mean, he wasn't around when I started. I mean, and then even when he was around, he didn't encourage that we go into the same thing. He's always discouraging it because he's always saying there's no money in it. That that we should go to school and become a doctor because he said that there's no money in film. Um, but at that time, I think when I was privileged to be on some of the sets, I never thought I was going to end up being, a filmmaker. Not until, not until after my father passed, and then it was Nollywood, and I started seeing some sort of decay, and that's what I call it. Because I then started comparing what my father and the likes were doing. I was comparing it to what people were doing then in the 90s. And I'm like, no, I've been on my father's set before where they spent almost 2 months filming. And then, in the early 90s, people would shoot a whole film in 3 days. And I'm like, what's going on? And then when you look at the output, you see that huge difference, in the whole thing. So I started saying, I think I can make better film. At least I can be in between my father's era and then this new era. And then I will look at the stories, I'll look at the acting, and I'm like, no, how come? I mean, the actors then were more passionate, they were so passionate, and then production value was huge. So, I mean, I honestly, that was why I said to myself that, look, I think I can do this thing better, and then I went to TK, it was the first person I went to in I think 1997. My father died in 1996. So I went to TK in 1997. I said, sir, I'd like to make film. And he said, who are you to want to make film? That your father was a filmmaker does not make you a filmmaker. He said, you don't inherit filmmaking, you learn it. He said, but acting, of course, you can do acting and all of that because you have good face for it. But film, you have to study it. I said, okay, sir. I said, but you can start as an actor. If we have anything, we'll let you know. And then in 2008, in 1998, when they wanted to do Shaori there, they now asked that I come for audition. And I went, and then I was picked, for that role. And so I'll clearly say that TK was, a major integral part, of why and how I got to where I am today. Because I think it was through him that I actually learned, how to be passionate, about film, because I got close to him that I was seeing him like every weekend, even though I was working in the bank at that time. But even if he calls me, even whilst in the bank, and he said, oh, they're doing something in the Badon Film Festival, I'll leave the bank and I'll take an excuse and I'll run, and I'll go with him. So, and every second that we spend together, all we talk about is film. Mm. You can't really teach people how to direct. You can't say this is how to direct. So TK never really I don't think there was any time he ever said to me, this is how to direct. But from the conversation, I picked what I want to pick. You know, sometimes I'll invite him to my house and then I'll cook and we just watch film from morning to night. We can watch 3 films, Indian films, American films, you know, so these were things that I was doing with him, you know, and then I'll see him on, you know, front cover of film, International Film Festival program. And I'm like, how come this man is the only one that goes to festival? You know, especially after the likes of my father, because I know my father went to a lot of festivals. But after my father's era, it was TK. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, I want to go to festivals, you know. And then I'll ask him question, and he started, so that was it. And then I worked in the bank in 2004. I just said, look, okay, I'm not doing this bank thing again. And then I went to film school, you know, just to brush up my idea and understanding of film. Came back, and the rest is history today.
Fantastic.
Mm.
So as to your next move in terms of, you know, where, you know, because like I said, you've tried it, you've done a lot of things. Not just tried, you've done a lot. You've done a lot of genres, a lot of moods.
Mm.
What are the things that you still want to explore cinematically?
No, I'm still going to be doing different genre. I'm already in pre-production. I mean, I'm done with Citation. I'm shooting another film in January, which is an adaptation of a book, and I have like 4 scripts locked to be shot between now and the next 4 years. So if I'm alive, I'm just gonna be having fun shooting film, and you know, yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, we're looking forward to seeing the films and
Thank you.
the work still to be shot. And looking forward, I'm personally looking forward to seeing one of your father's films. I hope we have a chance, maybe in a future festival, we'll get, a chance to see Taxi Driver 1 and 2, and, keep our fingers crossed that, you're able to restore the other outstanding films. And yeah, looking forward to seeing all that too. So,
No, those
Kunle,
are some of the things. You know, we have like our studio now. Is like a mini cultural center.
okay,
So within the hub, we're going to have a 120-seater cinema, and
wow,
we're also going to have like a small sound stage, a bar, restaurant. So we're going to be curating films. We're going to be doing movie nights,
cool,
then live band night, on the mainland. So these are so we'll be watching classic films, whichever. It doesn't have to be just my father's. Any film that has been restored, we'll bring it. So there will be a lot, of such an opportunity to also see those films.
fantastic, fantastic.
Mm.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. Kunle,
Thank
thank
you,
you so much,
Shika. Thank you, Shaka. Thanks so much for having me.